الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين ما بعد. So inshallah continuing Umdatul-Ahkaam, we began last lesson and we mentioned a number of things related to the intention. We're still going to talk about the first hadith and then continue inshallah ta'ala. So the first hadith, as we know, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, the hadith that we started to cover. And we mentioned a number of matters related to the importance of this hadith. One second. Now, so we mentioned a number of matters related to the importance of this hadith. Of the things that is important to understand, هذا الحديث يدخل في كل باب من أبواب الفقه. This hadith, it comes in every single chapter from the chapters of fiqh. Matters related to the intentions. And also of the things that was mentioned by Al-Hafidh Abu al-Hasan Tahir ibn Mufawwiz al-Ma'arifi al-Andalusi. He collected in some lines of poetry. He said, Umdatul-Deen عندنا كلمات أربع من كلام خير البرية اتق الشبهات وازهد ودع ما ليس يعنيك وأعملن بنية. So in these two lines of poetry he mentions that the pillars of our religion, the foundations of our religion and what is built upon goes to 4 words. And when he says kalimat, it doesn't mean literally 4 individual words. Kalimat or kalima in the Arabic language can refer to a phrase. Like we say La ilaha illallah is what? Kalimatul ikhlas or kalimatul tawheed. So it's not La ilaha as kalimat. We say kalima is one word, but it means a phrase, and it can also mean one word. Now, so he says the pillars or what our deen is built upon goes back to 4 hadith. That's what it means, 4 hadith. From kalami khayr al-bariyya, from the speech of the best of creation, and that is who? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He says ittaqi shubuhat. هذا في الحديث الحلال بين والحرام بين وبينهما مشتبهات. الحديث هذا الحديث الأول من عمدة الدين. That's from what the religion is built upon. The second hadith that is mentioned from this, ازهد في الدنيا يحبك الله ازهد فيما عند الناس يحبك الناس. الحديث يعني be aesthetic regarding the world life. Don't be attached to the world life, Allah will love you. Stay away from the affairs of the people, and the people will what? The people will love you. Now, the third hadith is من حسن الإسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعنيه ونحن في أشد الحاجة إلى مثل هذا الحديث اليوم. The third hadith, from the best of a person's Islam is to leave off that which does not concern them. And how great we are in need of remembering this today. Someone brings news to you, ask yourself, هل ينفعني هذا? Does this news benefit me? هل لي اشتراك في هذا أو معاملة في هذا? Do I have any participation in this? Or am I able to do anything with this? أو هو مجرد الخبر? Or is it just extra information? إذا كان هكذا لا يعنيني. It's not something that concerns me. It's not of a benefit to me. فلا أشتغل بها. So I don't busy myself with the likes of these types of news. والحديث الأخير, the last hadith based on the order of the poem. It doesn't mean order of virtue of the hadith, order of the poem. إنما الأعمال بالنيات. إنما الأعمال بالنيات, that the actions are based upon their intentions. Of the things that we haven't mentioned as of yet in regards to this hadith, ما سبب ورود الحديث. ما سبب ورود الحديث. Why was this hadith narrated? What was the reason why this hadith was mentioned? In the sciences of Quran, we have something called Asbab al-Nuzul. Now, Asbab al-Nuzul is the story behind why Allah sent down this revelation. Who is it talking about? Now, وعموم الحكم لا علاقة بخصوص السبب. The general ruling is not impacted by the specific reasoning. Maybe there's a specific reason for revelation, it doesn't take away from the ruling being what? General. العبرة يعني ليس بخصوص السبب. The lesson is not based upon the specific reason why it was mentioned. And when we understand the reasoning of this hadith, it also clarifies the wording of the hadith also. The reason why this hadith was revealed, because when the Sahaba were making hijrah from Mecca to where? Medina. كان منهم, there was one of them, لم يهاجر بأمر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. His hijrah was not based upon the command of making hijrah from Mecca to Medina. قيل أن كانت هناك في المدينة امرأة تسمى قيس. There was a woman called قيس. And this person wanted to marry this woman. فقالت لا أتزوج بك حتى تهاجر إلى المدينة. She said, I will not marry you until you make hijrah to Medina. فهاجر. So he made hijrah and he was called Muhajir Qais. And that's why the first thing mentioned in the hijrah says, فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ لِلدُّنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا أو امرأة ينكحها, or for a woman to marry, هذا الرجل. ولكن that specific man, does that take away from the general ruling for everyone? No, it will apply to everyone. نعم. And also says فهجرة إلى ما هاجر إليه, هذا يدل على تحقير هذا الشيء. So this is something that is dispraised. Now, something that is not looked upon well. So whatever your intention was, that's what it was. Also, the things that we can benefit, جواز عدة نيات في عمل واحد. The permissibility of having a number of intentions for one action. مثلا صلينا المغرب. Now, عموم الناس, the general people, when they came and they prayed Maghrib, النية صلاة المغرب. نعم, the intent was to pray Maghrib. من زاد نيتي أن أمتثل بأمر الله وأتبع سنة رسول الله أن أصلي كيف رأيته أصلي, يعني بما جاء به وصفا, يعني I am praying to fulfill the command of Allah. I am praying as the Prophet Muhammad prayed. هذه جمع النيات. وهذا يزداد ماذا؟ الثواب. This is what increases the reward of a person. فكل واحد يصلي صلاة واحدة ولكن ليس لهم وهم ليسوا سواء في الأجر. They are not the same in reward. And that's why I mentioned لكل امرئ ما نوى. For every person that which they intend. يعني العباد يتفاوتون في النية. The people, they fluctuate in their intention. Not everyone's intention is the same. Naam. And this is the importance of understanding the the significance of one's intention. And it's of the ways that a person can get abundant rewards. Also of the things that is to be understood. Al-Hijrah or Al-Muhajir, the person who makes Hijrah. Hijrah has a number of meanings. In the language, the Arabic language, it means taraka. At-tark is to leave something off. But أما الهجرة في الشرع, as for according to the Sharia, فله معنيان. It has two meanings. باختصار. أحدهما, one of the meanings is one, انتقال من بلد الكفر إلى بلد الإسلام. Leave off a land of kufr to a land of Islam. والمعنى الثاني هو ترك المعاصي. ترك معاصي. وهذا من حديث النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال المهاجر من هاجر ما حرم الله. إنما المهاجر من هاجر ما حرم الله. The one who is a true muhajir is the one who leaves off that which Allah has prohibited. فالهجرة بمعنى انتقال من بلد الكفر إلى بلد الإسلام. وكذلك ترك المعاصي, leaving off sin. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Also of the things that we mentioned, النية تميز بين العبادات وبين العبادات والعادات. That the intention, it differentiates between different types of worship. هل هذه العبادة نافلة أو فرض? Is this act of worship something as voluntary or obligatory? هل هذه عبادة أم عادة? Is this something that is a act of worship or a custom? Like الذي مثلا اغتسل لتبريد, the one who, as I mentioned before, washes to get cold. هذا لا يغتسل من أجل رفع الحدث. This person is not making ghusl with the intention of removing impurity. They want to cool down. فهذا عادة لا حكم لها. يعني العادات مباح. The general things, they are permissible. Until something comes, they say that is what? Haram. And that's why we understand من الحديث الكلمة الأعمال بمعنى العبادات. الأعمال الشرعية is referring to legislated actions, acts of worship. لأن العادات لا تحتاج إلى النية. Because the customs, they don't need intention. حتى يقولون أن رد الأمانة وأداة الأمانات لا تحتاج النية. Any completing a trust, returning the trust to someone, this doesn't need intentions. نعم. Also النية تطلق على معنى الإرادة. It's also used to refer to what a person wills or wants. والدليل قول الله تعالى منكم من يريد الدنيا ومنكم من يريد الآخرة. From you are those who they want, they intend the worldly life. That's what they want, that's what they desire, that's what they pursue. But also from you are those who want the hereafter. Now, so this is also evidence regarding the intention. Also of the things that is to be understood, النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا هجرة بعد الفتح. لا هجرة بعد الفتح. There is no hijrah after the conquering of Mecca. What does this mean? That hijrah is no longer is done? What did the Prophet mean by this? Now, from Mecca. لماذا قال هذا? Why did he say this? Now, because Mecca is now returned back to the Muslims, a land of Islam. فلا هجرة بعد الفتح. وسبحان الله إذا تأملنا If we ponder هذا معنى كذلك بالتأمل, if you contemplate أن مكة لن تعود تحت أيدي الكفار, that Mecca will never go back to being under the hands of the kuffar. Subhanallah. لا هجرة بعد الفتح. مكة ستبقى بلدا مسلما إلى قيام الساعة. That Mecca will be a land of Islam until when? Till قيام الساعة. وكذلك مدينة. لأن الحجرة كان من مكة إلى مدينة. أما الهجرة فهي قائمة حتى تقوم الساعة. Hijrah عموما, in general, is something that is to be upheld and practiced up until يوم القيامة. Also, of the things that was mentioned by أهل العلم, قال ابن المهدي الحافظ: من أراد أن يصنف كتابا فليبدأ بهذا الحديث. وقال: لو صنفت كتابا لبدأت في كل باب منه بهذا الحديث. To show the virtue of this hadith, the significance of this hadith, he mentioned, whoever wants to author a book, let them begin with this hadith. لأنه يذكر وفجأة الشيخ محمد بن سليمان عبد الكريم العلي هو في مسيرة السلف من مشاهير زحال بريدة تفرع عمره لتحقيق التوحيد والدعوة السلفية متمادنة. This is of the things that affects the ummah, that someone shared news of one of Ahl al-Ilm passing away. And as we know, subhanallah, al-hadith أن الله لا ينتزع العلم انتزاعا من صدور الناس. Allah does not take knowledge by taking away from the people, ولكن بقبض العلماء, by way of the death of the scholars. Wallahi, the biggest calamity upon the Muslims today is death of the scholars. There is no calamity greater upon the Ummah of Islam after the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except death of the scholars. Because when the scholars they die, those whom we have been commanded to refer back to, they become less in number. And this is something that affects every single one of us. Because the more we are distant from the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the more we have differences. And these differences that we have, they affect us greatly. People don't even realize how they affect us. People war against masajid. How can we war against houses of Allah? لِكُلِّ حِزْبٍ بِمَا لَدَيْهِمْ فَرِحُونَ. Because everyone is happy with what they have and what they call to. So now, look at the situation since the death of Umdatul-Ahkaam هذا, Sheikh Al-Bani, Sheikh bin Baz, Sheikh Al-Thaymin, Sheikh Muqbil rahmatullah alayhim. Look at the chaos that we've had since their death. That is the reality. We should be in the greatest state of fear whenever we hear the death of scholars. Because as the Prophet mentioned, when that time comes, what happens? People, they turn back to ignorant people. When I'm teaching, you can see this is the book in front of me. It's the explanation. I'm not bringing anything from myself. I'm not that person. I'm not an alim. I'm not a scholar. The best that I can do with what Allah has given me is take their words and give it to you. Transmit it to you. But the more they die, what do we have left? What do we have left? Ignorant people, confusing the masses. the celebrity culture that we have today. People, we can't even make islah no more. Why? Because people don't respect knowledge. They don't respect people of knowledge. So much small things that have occurred in communities that cause severe severing between brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, communities. Why? Because we don't go back to people of knowledge. Or we lack respect for people of knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who chooses from his ibad who he gives knowledge to. And from love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that we love those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. And that's why the calamity of loss of the people of knowledge is a calamity upon all of us. And all of us are affected. Wallahi, when I hear of death of scholars, I say, why am I still here? How is Allah allowing me to still live when I am nothing, but He's taken someone that we're in need of? And this is a reminder for you to turn back to Allah, to make tawbah one more time, to change your ways. And it goes back to what we mentioned, مِنْكُمْ مَنْ يُرِيدُ الدُّنْيَا وَمِنْكُمْ مَنْ يُرِيدُ الْآخِرَةِ. These are the two types of people that one has to ask themselves, who are they from? Am I from those who want the hereafter, or am I from those who want the dunya? That's the reality. That's what it boils down to. Because many times a person says, I want the hereafter. But we ask, is it just a statement? Because your actions, your statements, they don't show this. And of the things, the biggest things that we're in loss of, because of lack of people of knowledge today, because we don't have many role models that have taken from people of knowledge in that manner, we have lost one of the things that beautifies knowledge the most. What is that? Akhlaq. Manners. Wallahi, yani, في عهد Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, in the time of Imam Ahmad, they said, how much students did he have? Thousands. Can you imagine? There was no microphone. Husn al-sima', the perfect listening. No microphone. 5,000 students and the likes. People respected knowledge. Today we have Muslims making loud noises with cars, knowing there's a masjid right here. But in his time, Imam Barbahari, Sahibu Sharh al-Sunnah, it mentions in the Muqaddimah, when he sneezed and said Alhamdulillah, and the students, they said Yarhamakallah, the house of the Amir, Wali al-Amr, it began to shake. Can you imagine how silent things were? Because sound travels by what? Vibration. Imagine the amount of students there to say Yarhamakallah, and you feel the house shake. That's how the people were for knowledge. They'll go and be quiet. Pay attention. Because they know the dearity of this thing. And that's why the people of knowledge, they truly know its significance to say, this is a favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah makes you a vessel for knowledge. Because it's not who you are, it's not how smart you are, none of these things. A person reminds himself is only from Allah, so just as Allah gave it to you, He can remove it. And that's why you have to have ikhlas. Because if you're not sincere, Allah may take this favor away from you. Hamakallah. Do we not ponder in the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Man yuridullahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fi ad-din. Whomsoever Allah wants good for that person, He grants him understanding of the religion. It's from Allah. It's not from us. Allah is from Allah. The moment you think it's from yourself, The moment you think knowledge is from yourself, that's when you go astray. The moment you think your istiqamah, your steadfastness is from yourself, is when you go astray. It's only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahi la nashkur Allah kama yastahiq. We don't show gratitude to Allah in the way He's deserving. How many of us even know who are the people of knowledge? Or go out of our way to know who they are? This is the reality. And as I mentioned, the thing that I asked before, what is the thing that is lost with knowledge today, especially among us in the West? Because sometimes the West, just like when they were colonizers, they were the loudest people. But even among students of knowledge, the West, unfortunately, we're known to be loud but possess little knowledge. We may memorize books upon books, but if we have no manners, what is the benefit? Who's going to benefit from you? Even when it comes to giving advice, it requires what? Manners. That's why I say, an-nasiha murrun lil-mansuhi lah. Advice is bitter for the one who is being advised. So if I know in general I need to advise someone on something, I have to premeditate. It's not going to be accepted in the best way. So I have to be cautious of how I initiate my advice. I have to be cautious. Because two things occur based upon intention. If I intend good and I follow the way of the Salaf in manners and etiquette, then you'll find what? You'll have fruitful results. If my intention is bad, the actions are bad, the statements are bad, the results are also going to be bad. إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَهُ اللَّهِ. Except for those who Allah bestows His mercy upon. Yani, don't think that you being here, you can't become an alim. And it's something that is matloob. Allah mentioned, وَجَعَلْنِي لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. I said, make this dua and make me for the believers a people of taqwa, the believers, an imam. Imaman bima'na qudwatan hasana. A good example, a role model. That people, they look at you, they remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your pleasant company. They know if they spend enough time with you, they will get a benefit. And sometimes the benefit isn't always in what you say, but how you handle things, how you deal with situations. You see, you never know who's watching you, who's looking up to you. These are things that we have to take into consideration. An-niyya amruha shadid. The intention is a very severe matter. It's something we should beg Allah for, that He makes us of those who are mukhlisin. Even sufficient to know how important it is. What does Allah say? وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مُخْلِصِينَ لَهُ الدِّينَ. Can you imagine? Allah said they weren't commanded to do anything but to worship Allah with ikhlas. Nothing else. So that is sufficient for you to know أَنَّ هَذَا أَمْرٌ عَظِيمٌ. This is a very important matter. As I mentioned, the first hadith, if you want, we can make so much small benefits and move on. But everything in the day-to-day life of the Muslim goes back to this hadith. Everything. We mentioned before, we was informed of this calamity, the death of a person of knowledge. This alim, Ibn Mahdi, he mentioned if you were to author a book, then you should start the book with this hadith. And he also mentioned if I was to write a book, and a book that has abwab, especially a book of fiqh, or a book of hadith, that has abwab, like هذا كتاب الطهارة, هذا باب الوضوء, باب التيمم, Bab al-Ghusl, Bab al-Hayd, Abwab. He mentioned, I will start every bab of this hadith. ما الحكمة من هذا? What is the, subhanAllah, the fruits of this? What's the fruits of this? حتى يذكر نفسه دائما أن يكون مخلصا لله وأن يحسن نيته لله. That you can constantly remind oneself to be sincere and to have the correct intention for what a person is pursuing. فهذا العلم لا يطلب إلا لوجه الله. This knowledge is not sought except for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ولا ينشر العلم إلا لوجه الله. And knowledge is not shared except for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فمن كانت نيته لأجل الدنيا أو لأمداح الناس Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يصرف عنه قلوب العباد. If a person's pursuit of knowledge أشغالهم بالknowledge بالدنيا, يعني the actions of knowledge is for the worldly life. That's the objective. أشغالهم بالعلم من أجل الدنيا. The efforts of knowledge is for attainment of the worldly life, not for the sake of Allah. Allah will turn the hearts away from that person. فنسأل الله السلامة والعافية وأن يجعلنا من المخلصين آمين. الحديث الثاني, the second hadith, عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يقبل الله صلاة أحدكم إذا حدث حتى يتوضأ. In this hadith it mentions Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept the salah of any of you if إذا حدث أو أحدث إذا أحدث. It mentions in this hadith, Allah does not accept the salah of any of you إذا أحدث. أحدث بمعنى أبطل وضوءه. They do something that will nullify their wudu, such as past wind, anything to come from the private area both ways. هذا يبطل الوضوء. This will nullify a person's wudu. الخارج من السبيلين. Whatever comes from the front or back passage will nullify a person's wudu. There are matters that are differed in when it comes to breaking your wudu, such as al-hijama, such as mass al-dhakar, touching the private part, such as lams al-mar'a, touching the opposite gender, such as al-qay, vomiting. هذه المسائل في خلاف بين أهل العلم. In these matters there's difference among the scholars whether it breaks your wudu or not. لكن أما الخارج من السبيل ما في فرق في هذا. As for that which comes out of the private parts, there's no difference in this. Now, this will break a person's wudu. So here it says Allah will not accept that salah until what? Until a person makes wudu. فهذا يدل على أن الوضوء والطهارة شرط لصحة الصلاة. This will allow you to know that wudu or general purity فممكن لا يمكن تتوضأ بعدم وجود الماء أو الضرر باستعمال الماء, maybe because there's no water, or you'll become harmed if you use it, so you're not able to make wudu. So what do you do instead? Tayammum. نعم. آمين وياكم حبيبي. So you make tayammum instead, right? نعم. نعم.
It's one of them camel.
Camel meat is يعني there's خلاف in the Shafi'i. نعم. I have good history with some brothers, mashallah, and the discussion of camel's meat. I'm of the opinion that camel's meat breaks the wudu. Now, Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Just for latifa, something of small benefit. الخلاف في العلم خلاف الصحيح راحة ورحمة. Difference of opinion based upon the truth is mercy. فإذا كانت رحمة لماذا أصبح بيننا سبب للبغضاء? If we say this is a mercy, why has it become for us a means of enmity and hatred? SubhanAllah. No knowledge. I was with brothers, maybe 90% of them, we was on Umrah together, maybe 90% of them were of the opinion that camel's meat doesn't break the wudu. But they were of the opinion that touching the opposite gender breaks the wudu. I was the total opposite. Camel's meat breaks wudu and touching the opposite gender does not break the wudu. And we had halal beef. Alhamdulillah. It was memorable moments. We differed, but we still remained what? Brothers. And it reminded me of in 2012 when I was just finishing Medina Book 2. So one of the elders of the brothers in my community, he gifted me with, he took me to Jordan as a trip. He paid for me to go to Jordan. Jazahullahu khairah. So he took me to Jordan with three other brothers. And we went to visit some of the students of Sheikh Albani rahimahullah. And one particular Sheikh, نعم دائما أدخل في الشيخ في الكوس حفظه الله. So this particular Sheikh, I asked him, because I was just on Medina Book 3 now. That's when I started to come ICT. Medina Book 3, 2012, 13. I was coming here as a student just like all of you. Never knew Allah would give me tawfiq to become Imam, subhanAllah. So I said, Sheikh, this is my first time I'm asking the Sheikh a question in Arabic. So you build it up. My question was prepared for the taxi ride. One question. In Arabic is little, isn't it? I said, Sheikh, ماذا تنصحنا بدراسة بعد لغة العربية? I said, Sheikh, what do you advise us to study after we learn the Arabic language? And the Sheikh, he mentioned أنصحكم بدراسة أصول الفقه. I advise you to study أصول الفقه. Now, when I contemplate on that sitting, هذا المجلس مع هذا الشيخ, this sitting with the Sheikh, I benefit more things than I benefited at the time. At the time he said, إذا درستم أصول الفقه إذا اختلفتم ما زلتم إخوانا متحابين بينكم. He said, if you learn أصول الفقه, you will still be brothers who love each other when you have difference of opinion. He said, على سبيل المثال, he said today for example, أنت تريد أن ترى شيخا فلانية وأنت تريد أن تزور شيخ فلان. هذا خلاف. هل أصبحتم أعداء؟ Have you become enemies because of this difference? You want this, he wants that. نعم. هل أصبحتم أعداء؟ And I'm talking about places where the khilaf is mu'tabar. The difference of opinion is what? Is valid. Based upon evidence. Based upon a'immatul aqwal. Those who are your a'imma in this. Now, he mentioned that at that time. And when I think about it, it's because he had fiqh of the circumstance of the one who's asking him. Knowing that I'm from where? The UK. How many times do you hear, if you differ with some people, that's khalas, you're it, that's it. You are off the match. It matters where the difference is what? Is valid. And this is what separates boys from men, lions from parrots. The parrot, how does it please his master? By repeating everything he says. That's the parrot. The lion, how does it conquer? With strength. And what? Leadership. Courage. Even knowledge. Because the lion knows when it's time to attack. So when you want to be من رجال الدعوة لازم أن تكون أسدا. You have to be a lion. ولا تكون ببغاء. Don't become a parrot. نعم نعم شيخ. سلامة الله. لا لسه إن شاء الله التوفيق. الله يعينكم والله. الله يعينكم. نسأل الله لكم التوفيق. سلامة الله. الله المستعان. Now, because when you have difference of opinion, what happens? You become enemies. Rather than say, طيب نجلس, let's sit down and speak about it. بالعلم. The one who's going to get angry is because they don't have enough knowledge to have that discussion. Now, and also as nas نحن مبتدئين, we're beginners in knowledge. We have to be careful of putting ourselves out there in the forefront to have arguments or to argue or to enforce our opinions on others. هذا ليس من أخلاق أهل العلم. So it's also important for us to go back to كتب الأدب, books that speak about manners of the people of knowledge. حتى نتزين بهذه الآداب. That we're also able to beautify ourselves with these mannerisms. فالله تعالى لا يقبل الصلاة أحدكم إذا أحدث حتى يتوضأ. فطهارة شرط لصحة الصلاة. فهناك أعمال مقبولة وهناك أعمال مردودة. You have actions that are accepted and actions that are what? Rejected. إذا وافق الشرع مع الإخلاص فهو مقبول إن شاء الله. If it agrees with the Sharia and is built upon إخلاص, then it is what? Accepted. وإذا خالف الشرع وكان خال أو خال من الإخلاص فهو مردود. كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد. Whoever brings something new to our religion that's not from it, then it shall be rejected. Now look at the importance of needing someone of knowledge. In the both hadith that I've mentioned, this hadith al-Bab, إذا أحدث حتى يتوضأ. من أحدث في أمرنا. The word is the same, right? الفعل واحد أحدث. هل المعنى واحد? Is the meaning the same? لا. In this hadith, أحدث بمعنى أبطل وضوءه. يعني حصل له ما يبطل الوضوء. Something's happened that nullifies the wudu. أما الحديث من أحدث في أمرنا هذا ما ليس منه فهو رد. فهو ماذا؟ البدعة. You see, you have to have fiqh, understanding. نعم. سبحان الله. ومن صلى بدون الطهارة فهذا بدعة. يعني عمدا, intentionally. أما نسيانا فهذا شيء آخر. نعم. فهذا يدل على أن قبل والشرط شرط العبادة لازم أن تكون موجودة قبل العبادة حتى الفراغ منها. the conditions of worship have to be in place prior to the act of worship starting until the act of worship has been completed. So wudu طهارة لازم أن تكون طاهرا مطهرا قبل الصلاة حتى الفراغ منها, until you complete the salah. والصلاة أعظم أركان الدين العملية. This is the greatest pillar of Islam that is based upon action. And أعظم أركان الإسلام ماذا? What's the most important pillar of Islam? الشهادة. الشهادة هو مفتاح الإسلام. نعم. ولأجل عظم الشأن الصلاة, because of the greatness of the salah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala منع أن يتقرب إليه بهذه العبادة إلا على طهارة. The significance of this worship, Allah has prohibited that a person can draw near to Allah with his act of worship except that they're in a state of purity. هذا هو. And that's why they say العبادة مع الشرك لا تسمى عبادة كما أن الصلاة بدون الطهارة لا تسمى صلاة. Worship that is done with shirk is not called ibadah, just as salah without tahara is not called salah. فهذا يدل على وجوب الطهارة قبل الصلاة. Also, الصحة لا تستلزم القبول. The authenticity of an action doesn't necessitate it's going to be what? Accepted. And الله المستعان نحن لا ندري إذا قبل صلاة واحدة منا. لهذا قال عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما لأن يتقبل الله لي صلاة واحدة أحب إلي من جميع الدنيا. He mentioned, for Allah to accept one salah from me is more beloved to me than the whole world, than the dunya and everything in it. لأن الله تعالى يقول إنما يتقبل الله من المتقين. Allah only accepts from the people of taqwa. He says, look at this. This is Abdullah ibn Umar anhuma. He's not saying he's a person of taqwa. He's hoping that Allah has included him min jumlatil muttaqeen, that he's from those who are considered to be the people of taqwa. Also, as-salah يبطله الحدث. Salah is invalidated by things that will invalidate your wudu. And when if you nullify your salah by breaking your wudu, you have to make wudu and start the salah from the beginning. You don't continue from where you left off. بخلاف ماذا? In difference to what? الطواف. الطواف صلاة كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, except that's permitted to talk in it. But when you break your wudu in tawaf, you make wudu and you continue from the number you last finished before you broke your wudu. You don't have to start your tawaf from the beginning. Now, so that is the importance of al-wudu, al-tahara. والتفسير سيأتي في باب إن شاء الله. The details of this will come in the أبواب خاصة بالوضوء والتيمم والصلاة. In those أبواب that are about acts of purification and also the salah, where we talk about the conditions of the salah. Now, فنكتفي بهذا اليوم إن شاء الله. We'll stop here today and we'll continue من حديث الثالث في الدرس القادم إن شاء الله تعالى. We'll continue the third hadith in the next lesson. Whoever wants to try and memorize the hadith as well, it's encouraged to do so, and we'll have opportunities for those who want to read what they've memorized بإذن الله تعالى. فبارك الله فيكم ونصلي وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.